You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
We're back. This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios. We're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. As an American Family Insurance agent, Kim believes that there's much more to insurance than the policy itself. It's about providing you with dependable protection and services. Kim believes that trust and credibility can't be demanded. It can only be earned by what you say and what you do. Give Kim a call at 651-482-1598 and tell her you heard it here. It's time now for a message from the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. The MHA Minute is brought to you by Start to Finish Maintenance Contractors. Start to Finish provides 24-hour service for all of your home and business maintenance needs. Call Start to Finish at 952-259-1219 for your home, for your business, for your peace of mind.
Do you need products to successfully run your rental property business? Interested in a class about fair housing or rekeying locks? Want to use the plain language lease that is used by the majority of rental property owners in Minnesota? Then you should visit mmha.com. That's two M's, mmha.com. That's the website for the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, the most comprehensive resource in the state for owners of everything from a duplex to hundreds of units, and for townhome and condo associations as well. They've been around for 40 years and put on hundreds of seminars, publish a monthly magazine, sell Attorney General approved leases, and have countless other tools for property owners. While they are a membership organization, all of their resources and seminars and their annual convention and their spring conference and their orientation programs are open to everyone. For more information, visit the website, mmha.com.
Well, Gene, are we finished with our theme for the day, do you think?
I think so.
I think I am. I think I've reached the limit of my tolerance for that theme.
Let's have a cleansing breath.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, what's our next story?
Well, before we do that, I want to let our listeners know we've got a great resource available to you. It's a bi-monthly newsletter that we give out for free. It's called What's New. A lot of what we talk about on the show is discussed in further detail in the newsletter. You'll also find a lot of the people that we'll have on the show will also write for that newsletter. It's great. We've got a new February issue that is out. And all you need to do is give us a call during the week at New Concepts at 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori. She'll make sure that you start receiving that either electronically or by mail. Our next story, I'm going to file this under You're Not the Boss of Me. There is a lawsuit on solar panels that's become the big issue, not only for cities, but also for homeowner associations.
Okay.
And, you know, as we start to look at this story here, Tony, one of the things that I think about here is how much the pendulum in our society swings back and forth and back and forth. And back in the 60s, there was this idea of the individual and individual rights, and I'm going to be different, and I'm going to be myself, and really, you're not going to be the boss of me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think we've swung so far in that direction that it is impinging upon this idea where we have a balance, or needs to be a balance of not only the rights of the individual, but the rights of the majority. And I think that's what we're talking about here for both cities and HOAs.
Okay.
Here's what's happening. Last June, there was a Cole County Circuit judge who ruled in favor of a couple who sued the city of Clarkson Valley. Why? Because they refused to allow them to install solar panels on their home. It seemed as if a new precedent had been set. State standards regulating residential solar systems had triumphed a city's right to restrict their installation.
Okay.
As it turns out, the lawsuit didn't do squat.
Didn't really settle anything.
I
want to interject here. This is not Minnesota.
That's right.
This is somewhere else, and I don't know where the date
Cole
line came
County,
from.
I don't know what state that is.
But just so you know, we're telling a story about somewhere other than Minnesota. Yeah.
And so here's the issue to begin with. The city said, you know what? we have some restrictions on what can and can't be done in the community, because we've gotten feedback from people in our community on what can be built, how things can be built, and that's why some cities will have restrictions on paint and paint color that can be used.
Fences, that's very common.
Yeah. Also, in some communities, the setback of a garage.
Sure.
Whether or not in some communities, whether a brick facade must be on the front of the home.
Sure. So it's not just homeowners associations that have architectural controls. The cities sometimes do. And in this case, the city had some restrictions on installing solar panels, but the state overruled them. Or a judge in a case decided that the state regulations overruled the city.
Yes, and it begs the question, does the state, I think a lot of people would think naturally, oh, well, the state's bigger than the city, so of course,
sure,
they're the boss of the state. And wait a minute, then the federal government's bigger than the state, so the federal government, trumps the state, and there's a hierarchy. But it really does, beg the question, does a city have a right to set their own community standards?
And I thought they did.
I thought so too. An HOA, do they have a right to set their own community standards?
Well, I think we've learned that HOAs are even more attacked and more beleaguered over these issues than the city is.
Yes, but we're talking about a comparison that should be kept hand in hand here when you're comparing one with the other, and that is, you got to remember, when a person goes to move into a particular city, they're not required to. They're doing so of their own volition.
That's right.
When they move into an association, they're moving in of their own volition. They're electing to do that. Well, before you move in, isn't that one of the things that a buyer goes through in their mind when they're buying a home? Why do I want to live here? I want to live here because of the schools. I want to live here because of the parks. I want to live here because of the other homes. I want to live because of how close I am to
work or to friends or whatever.
Number of things.
That's right. They also, though, should be looking at what are the regulations and ordinances in this city or in this homeowners association concerning other issues I might have. Like, can I have a satellite dish?
Yeah.
Can I build a fence?
Yeah.
Can I put solar panels? Those are all things you should be looking at before you purchase your home.
Right,
correct?
and cities are going to have restrictions on them, just like an HOA.
That's right.
And for people to feign surprise here, it to me seems too much. Recently in New York, there's a big to-do right now because one family decided to have a pig in a high-rise condo where they live. But the city of New York said, this is not an approved animal. You can have dogs. You can have domesticated animals, which are cats, dogs, fish, things like that.
Yeah.
But that is not considered a domesticated animal. You can't and the city, not the association in this case, is making a big fuss. And people are saying, how about the rights? Oh, these poor people with a pig. What causes someone to be such an individual and be so individualistic that they've got to just do something that's
completely contrary?
Yeah, to everything else, and not understand that, there are community standards.
That's right.
And if you don't like it, you should move to a different community.
That's
because
right.
Other communities will allow that.
That's right.
And that's the beauty of our country.
That's right.
People have the opportunity to move if that's very important to them.
That's right. So in this case, the state overruled the city, or the judge's decision. I should say the judge decided that state regulations overruled the city. I don't agree with that. I think the city, as you said, should be able to set its own standards based on what the residents want. Mm-hmm. I believe that of a homeowners association as well. The homeowners association lays it all out for you in advance and says, here's what the deal is. If you want to live here, do you agree to this?
Yeah. Talk about for us that couple in the homeowners association.
Yeah, that was the next step.
Being upset.
This article kind of wraps together two things. There was the city-state issue, but now they're saying, you know what, but this issue comes up as well in a homeowners association. We know that very well. Mm-hmm. So there's another couple, the Hanleys, who are filing against the homeowners association where they live because the association denied their request to install solar panels on their home. Their attorney acknowledges that the homeowners association has the right to have provisions and specifications and restrictions on architectural elements, correct? But his argument is the governing documents don't specifically mention solar panels. So that means it's a free-for-all. Or it should mean that people can do whatever they want if it's not specifically mentioned
so he
in
says
the governing documents.
If you don't have something that mentions it specifically,
you can't restrict
then
it.
you can't restrict it. Have you heard of something more juvenile in all your life?
But you know what? This kind of, works in court.
Yeah.
It can prevail in court.
I mean, really, I've said this story before online. We had friends who had a little boy who was maybe 3-4 years old, was swinging a hammer, and all of a sudden, bam, bam, we hear glass breaking.
Oh.
And we go in to run in the other room to find that here's this little boy smashing windows out, and my mother
Having
says,
a ball?
Oh yeah, and the mom says, "Well, what possessed you to do this? What made you think you could?" He said, "Well, nobody told me I couldn't." I mean, that's the thinking of a juvenile. You expect that of a 4-year-old, not a grown man, an attorney.
Yes.
Well, if it doesn't say so, then
you can do it.
Then you can't restrict it. Well, guess what, Mr. Attorney? It doesn't say that you can strut around in the common areas with a Bengal tiger either.
Or that you can't. It doesn't prohibit that.
It doesn't say you can't do that.
That's
so
right.
Guess what? I guess
So
that
you're
means
do that?
Siegfried and Roy can do that in any homeowner association that they purchase.
Because you can't pass a rule for every eventuality or everything that someone might dream up. That's why your governing documents say you have to run these things by the board of directors so that they can apply the community standards to the issue.
Exactly.
And approve or disapprove what you want to do.
And if something is a standard that hasn't really been looked at before, then the homeowner, instead of going to a lawsuit and ginning things up, ought to have a sensible talk with the HOA, include the members of the HOA, and say, is this what we want in our community?
Mm-hmm.
And give the chance to the whole community and the majority to say, you know what? We've changed your mind. That makes sense.
That's right. And that's a very good point, because something like solar panels, they were very new 10, 15 years ago, but people are being swayed to that direction.
Yes, they are. But reasonableness, I think that's what we're talking about.
Yes, persuasion, yes.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's show. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of the weekend. We look forward to having you here next week on Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
I have been chosen. Farewell, my friend. I go on to a better place.